Today's creative world is music. Today's guest is from the world of music. He's a multi-platinum recording artist, producer, bassist, guitarist, and a music event producer. He has worked with many famous bands since the early 80s, has over 100 international record releases, and was featured in the documentary Quiet Riot, Well Now You Are Here. He's definitely one of the most acclaimed bassists, having worked alongside music icons such as Alice Cooper, Greg Allman, Ted Nugent, as well as members of Guns N' Roses and Kiss. Please welcome Chuck Wright. Hello, Chuck. How you doing?
Konnichiwa. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
So first of all, could you tell us about yourself and how did you, in the first place, get into the industry?
I've been a musician since I was a teenager. I played a little bit of guitar, and the kids in my neighborhood that were older said, "Hey, could you play bass?"
Oh,
and I said, "Oh, that's just 4 strings, right?" And so I got a bass. I asked my mom, and I got a bass. And I picked it up very easily.
How old were you then?
I was like almost 15.
15.
Yeah. And actually during that time, I was in military school for almost 9 years.
Wow.
And I was going to go to the Air Force Academy, but I joined this band. I did my first gig, which was at a UCLA fraternity party. Oh. So I drank beer. I made $75, and the girls thought I was cute. So I went to my mom and I go, "This is what I want to do. This is my, I see this as my future." She was like going, "You got to be after all these years." But so music changed my whole trajectory in my life. Totally a complete right turn.
Right.
And I made her proud because I was able to give her a platinum record with her name on it years later. And she became my biggest fan. She was at every show. Go.
Awesome.
But so that's kind of how I got into it. I grew up in Los Angeles, which is the mecca for music, basically, especially in the era I grew up. I used to go to a record store when I was in high school, and the guy there told me to pick up this newspaper. It's called Melody Maker. It's from England. So I would look through the paper and I would see about these bands, Humble Pie or whoever.
Right.
And I was with my friend driving down Sunset Boulevard. I didn't have a driver's license yet. And we saw the marquee of the Whiskey A Go-Go, which is a legendary Whiskey A Go-Go, and it said, "Yes, $5. And I said, "Isn't that's that band? I saw them in Melody Maker." So we went in there, and that totally changed my head, the way I was thinking musically.
Right.
I became a progressive rock fan, and you'll hear elements of progressive rock in my new record that I just released
That's awesome.
a few months ago.
So you're now super successful, but what production or professional opportunity do you credit as your breakthrough, and how did you seize that opportunity?
Well, actually, I had my own band for 6 years in the late 70s, early 80s, but I was asked to play in a band called Dubrow at the time, and we did these demos, and a record company president saw the band, decided to sign the band, and those demos became the Quiet Riot Mental Health record, which sold 10 million copies. Wow. So the very first record I ever played on became a #1 album, the first metal rock record in history to go to #1 in Billboard. It changed the fabric of the music scene at the time, because at that time, all the popular music was new wave music, which is like the Knack, My Sharona, and the Motels and bands like that. Skinny ties, short hair, all of a sudden it became big hair, hard rock music. So I was very fortunate to be a part of that record. And I moved on to work with a band called Jafria, and we had a hit single and called Call to Your Heart, and toured, sold out arena tours. So my very first experience touring happened to be playing sold out arenas. We were out with a band called Deep Purple, who I was a big fan of, and then we joined a tour with a band called Foreigner that had a #1 song called I Want to Know What Love Is. So, I'm blessed. My very first experiences in rock and roll were like at such a major level like that.
Wow, that must have been super exciting for you.
Yeah, unbelievable. I can't tell you what it felt like that very first time playing arena. You're standing off to the side, and when the lights go off and you hear the crowd, the thousands of people, it's like, whoa!
Goosebumps.
And so, yeah, it was super and exciting. That's one of the highlights, definitely. It's hard to, you can't explain it unless you experience it, really. You need to.
Right. Wow. So you've worked with lots of bands such as, Quiet Riot, and House of Lords. What are like fun things, good sides, and difficulties of being part of bands?
Well, yeah, I've been a part of bands, and that's like a marriage because you have to get along with all these guys all the time.
Kind of commitment.
Yeah, but I've also worked for iconic artists like Alice Cooper and Greg Allman and Ted Nugent, where you're just the guy and you just kind of do what you're kind of told. But in a band, it's always like negotiations, just like any relationship. I want to go dinner here. No, I really want to have Chinese dinner. No, I want to have Italian. So it's like that with the band and creating music too. No, I think it should be this. I think it should be that. So there's a lot of compromise going on when you're in bands. The good side is the camaraderie that you have as a band. A lot of the things about the downside of the rock and roll world, people think it's all glamorous, but the traveling can be like canceled flights or multiple flights and then driving. So I at one point I started saying I get paid to travel. The playing now is a privilege by the time you get to the stage. Right.
That's awesome. So I listened to your solo single, "The Weight of Silence." It was amazing. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you.
And then, any particular message you put in there?
Well, that actually is the first song that I wrote for my new record. Chuck Wright Sheltering Sky is the name of the project. It's when the pandemic hit, I finally had time to sit down and compose again. Before that, I was on the road every weekend with Quiet Riot. And I also run an event in Hollywood called Ultimate Jam Night. It's at the legendary Whiskey A Go Go, where I have to coordinate between 45 and as many as 100 professional musicians. And it was weekly. Now now that we're back, it's I can't do it every week anymore. It's twice. So when the pandemic hit, I sat down and started writing on the way I was feeling about looking at the world, feeling post-apocalyptic. There's like all these bustling cities like New York City, Vegas, empty streets, right? So I just wrote an instrumental track and I edited together a video of drone footage of all the empty cities. And I put it up on YouTube, and a friend of mine from the band Tesla, who you might know, he's a drummer, said, "Hey, I love your song. I'd love to put drums on it." And I said, "Great. I never thought about it, but sure." And then somebody else, another guy named Alan Hines, who's a great jazz fusion guitar player, said, "I love this. I'd love to do some guitar." So he sent me some solo material over it, and I edited it together to create a theme. So then I had them film themselves, and I edited that together, and I put that video out. And now my record came out in May, and 3 days before it was released, I had no idea I was nominated, but that video, it won Best Video and Best Instrumental with the Rock Music Alliance Awards, up against Joe Satriani and John Five. I had no idea I was even nominated for it. So yeah, you picked a good one to talk about, but Weight of Silence basically is the heaviness of the emptiness of the world. And basically the video kind of reflects that, and I had one character that was like the last man left on Earth. He's in a hazmat suit, and there's an empty train that goes through the beginning to the end of the video.
Wow, that's amazing. So of course, your very first solo album, Chuck Wright's Sheltering Sky, was recently released.
Yeah.
So could you tell us about it, like, and how it came about, or artists you worked with on it, or anything you would like to share with us?
Well, I actually never planned on doing a solo record. I just started writing music that I wanted to hear. I had no limitations. I could do whatever I wanted. So when you listen to the record, you're going to hear a variety of styles: progressive rock, jazz fusion. I have a couple funk tunes on there. There's really moody, mystical type of music, cinematic feeling. A couple like Led Zeppelin thing. I have a folk tune on the song that sounds like Robert Plant, Alison Krauss kind of, and I even have a Celtic, full-on Celtic piece with violin. I have 3 drummers doing a tribal drum pattern. I have Elian pipe, mandolin. So it's an excursion. When you listen to the album from top to bottom, it's like going on a trip, a journey. And I actually have 41. I just did a head count. Guests on it that are all friends of mine. 41 guest musicians. And what would happen was I'd be working on a song and I go, you know who would be great for this? I need the right voice. I covered Bjork's Army of Me as one of the songs, and I really wanted the right female voice for it, and I thought about a singer named Whitney Tai who had done Ultimate Jam Night, and I've seen her videos of her solo stuff, so I reached out to her, and she goes, I love Bjork, I'd love to do it, and we became really close friends, and she ended up co-writing the song on the record with me, and she also sings a song called Giving Up the Ghost that I've had inside for a long time that I finally got out. I needed her voice, so she's on 3 songs on the album.
Wow.
So it's just different friends, you know, just the right guitar player for the right part.
Right.
One song has 5 guitar players on it. So,
Really?
Yeah, like there's a pedal steel guitar, then there's a slide guitar, then there's acoustic guitars, which I play most of the acoustic guitars on the record, and all the basses, of course, because that's what I do. I'm a bass player, right?
Right.
So, and I do some keyboards and sound effects, and I produced the record.
Wow.
And I oversaw every element that went down working. When you're during the pandemic, you can't all get into a room like you normally do making a record. So it was more of, hey, check this out. Oh, I dig it, man. I want to. And I go, well, this is what I'm looking for, the kind of thing. I like a Jeff Beck style guitar part here, solo thing, and then we would go back and forth. So it was basically all done via the internet.
Wow.
And then I'd get the tracks, and then we'd mix them.
A lot of process, and you've done a lot for that. And now I wonder, how long did it take to complete the album?
That's
Like,
if I'm guessing, 16 months.
16 months.
Yeah, over all that time, just going back and forth. And I have other songs that I didn't complete. I got to a point where I go, I have to finish this, you know? So I started finishing songs and mixing them and working with different engineers.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a few different guys that mixed.
All done in LA?
All that part was done in Los Angeles, yeah. Although one song was mixed in Phoenix.
Okay.
Drummer who also played drums on, his name is Ken Mary. He's an award-winning producer, engineer, and he was in my band House of Lords. And we've done a bunch of other projects together.
Right. The album came out, and then of course you've been super busy. Is there any other projects that you can share with us, like current project or future projects?
Well, I'm as I mentioned, I run Ultimate Jam Night, which is now twice a month pretty much. And it's a different theme each week. So we come up with a theme, and then you start building the show from there. You see the best players for that. I've been working with a thing called the Legends of Classic Rock, which is the founding member of White Lion and a singer from Great White and a keyboard player that played with Ozzy Osbourne with Randy Rhoads era. And then we've had a few different guitar players in and out, but I started working with them. And I'm also starting an album project for Frontiers Records with Ken Mary, who I just mentioned to you, and a guy named Jimmy Bell, who is in another version of House of Lords. So there's always a lot going on for me.
That's a lot.
yeah, and I'm gonna do some tracks for Whitney on her new album as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So of course, a lot of people who are interested or determined to kind of jump in the industry, but not quite there yet. So could you kind of send advice or message to the younger people?
I get asked, can you tell me what can I do? What can I do? How do I do this? Only do it if you love it and it's completely what you have to do, that it's in your blood. Don't do it because you think you're going to get famous or you're going to make money or any of those reasons. You got to do it because you have to do it. It's in you. You have to do it.
Yep.
That's the only reason to really do this, because it's becoming a more and more difficult path.
Right.
Think about it. There's 60,000 songs released a day.
Well, I didn't
on
know
Spotify.
That. Wow.
And to rise above that is very difficult. So if you're going to get into it, really you have to believe that this is what your life's calling. I would say have something on the side too to pay your bills as you're getting going.
Right.
But you have to be dedicated to it. You have to love it, and always try to get into the creative end of it. Don't just learn the notes on the paper. Something I never did. I'm a self-taught musician, and I've done over 100 records, but it's play from inside, not from up here.
Right. So what do you think is necessary to succeed internationally?
Internationally? Well, talking with you people helps. Because of the internet, and that's the positive end of it. You can actually reach people in Australia and reach people in Europe and Japan.
Right. There are more to it in 2022,
Yeah, there's more opportunity to get it out there to the rest of the world compared to when I was making records in the beginning. It was very difficult.
So the last question, title of the show is Creative World. What does the word creative mean to you?
For me, it's inspiration.
Inspiration, meaning?
It's taking a situation like I mentioned earlier, but like the pandemic, and writing something from that feeling. One of the songs on my record is called See You on the Other Side. I got a phone call that the drummer in my band died. Sat down and wrote. Created the song top to bottom, every part of it, the chorus idea, everything. So it's a dark kind of inspiration, but it's something that reached inside of me to make me get down and be creative musically.
Right.
Or whatever inspires you can lead to creativity, I think.
Wow, that's super beautiful. Thank you. Today's guest was Chuck Wright, a multi-platinum recording artist. Thank you, Chuck. It was such a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thanks for having me. Otsukare-sama!
Otsukare-sama!
This episode will be available on YouTube this coming Saturday. For details, please check out our Facebook page. Next, more exciting materials to show you all.
Wait, there's part 2. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.